everyone, so I wanted to show you how I made this simple mini spooky cloche. So this is an old resin skull that I've had since I was a kid, since I was like a teenager, and this is a little mini cloche that I picked up from the craft store last year. They're like, I think they're about £1 or something, and you use them to make like whatever decorations you want, or like Christmas decorations. Now, to get the skull to fit in the cloche, I had to put it at a certain angle, which also made it so it would be tricky to stick it in place on the base. So what I did was put some hot glue behind the skull and use this to hold the skull in the position it needed to be to fit in the cloche, but also so that the face was facing forwards, because otherwise it would be looking down, and I didn't want that. So I had to just sit there and hold it in place for a while, because obviously you have to wait for the hot glue to cool down. Then once the glue cooled, that held the skull in the position that I wanted. And then it was a case of dirtying up the glass. In hindsight, I should have done that before, but I forgot. But never mind. So what I'm doing is getting a little bit of watered down acrylic paint, just some black. And I'm just using that just to smudge around on the inside to make the glass look a bit dirtier, just to add some staining and, you know, to make it look like this, you know, it's a bit manky in there. You can't hardly see it at the moment because it was just a thin wash, but then I did add a little bit more paint to make it a bit darker. And you'll see later on I add it on the outside as well. So yeah, it's just a wash of black watered down paint, just to dirty and grime up the glass a little bit. I didn't do anything to the skull because I liked it how it was, and it doesn't look like it on camera because it's a bit washed out, but in reality it's a slightly darker shade, like a bone shade, and it's already got like darker colours in the grooves and everything, so the detail shows up quite well without doing like a wash over the top. The base I repainted because the base was like a pale colour on the inside, like a pale grey, and then black on the outside, so I painted the inside of the base black as well, because I liked the look of the skull against the black base. It made it stand out more. And then what I did was, once I applied a little bit of the paint and did a few layers and spread it around, I used my heat gun just to quickly dry that off. I then used the same wash of paint to dirty up the outside. I want it to look like this skull's been in here for a long time. Just ignore the blob of glue at the back. There was no other way of getting the skull in the position I wanted. So as you can see, it doesn't sort of show up too much, but the idea is it just makes it look a bit more grimy and a bit older. Then I wanted to add some extra details to make, maybe this has been around for a long time and it's been exposed to the elements a bit, so I decided to add some of my fake moss that I've got in my craft kit. And what I did was glued that around the base and travelling up the sides of the little mini cloche. And it's just a case of applying a little bit of hot glue here and there wherever you want the moss to be, and in whatever shape you want the moss to be in, and then applying the moss over the top. Later on, once everything's fully cooled and dried off, I'll probably put a layer of Mod Podge over the top just to make sure the little fluffy bits of moss don't come off. And then I tacked the base down just with 4 little blobs. It doesn't take a lot to hold the base on this, and obviously the base has got no weight to it because the skull stuck to the glass, not the base. And then I went round the base, added some more glue and added some more moss, and then obviously this extra layer of moss and glue is going to make sure that the base stays in place more securely and also holds the moss in position. Anywhere where the moss didn't quite stick because the glue dried too quick, I just used the end of my glue gun to just remelt that little bit of glue here and there to touch it up and apply a bit of moss. Because the glass was quite cold, any little bits of glue on the glass were drying very quickly. So I did have to occasionally just remelt the glue a little bit before applying the moss. I tried to work as quickly as possible, but there were a couple of places here and there where things just didn't stick because it did virtually cool instantly on the cold glass. So I applied that all the way around the base and then just brushed off any excess, and then anywhere where I needed to, I remelted the glue and just filled in any gaps. And I just went round and touched up any bits where I felt it needed a little bit more moss. And then the next thing I did was to add some moss to the top of the glass dome. Again, to make it look a bit more weathered and a bit like it's been there for a while, so there's like moss growing on the surface at the top. And I just did that in little pieces all the way around the top where this like sort of curly stalk is. The idea is that these are like, you can hang these up, these little mini cloches. That's why they've got this like hook at the top, because you can use these to make decorate, like, you know, tree decorations and things. That's the section I got them from. And they do tend to have these year round though. It's the plastic baubles I tend to find in the craft stores that are like just Christmas really, but these little cloche things tend to be hanging around most of the year. And then what I did was I just took a bit more of that wash of watered down black paint and just dabbed it here and there just to add some different colours to the moss and just to darken it a little bit. It didn't work brilliantly because obviously I needed to add a layer of Mod Podge over the top really to make sure any loose bits of moss off the surface came off, but stayed on. But it stayed on the parts where there was plenty of glue. It's just here and there, but it's just to add a little bit of variation in the colours of the green. And I just rubbed off any excess pieces, and then it was a case of, once I just tidied everything out of the way, I added some spider webs at the top. And to do this I just used my glue gun and just created little strings of glue and then just wiggled the glue gun around to make them just stick in random places around the surface. So what you do is you just squeeze out a small blob of glue and then quickly move the glue gun so that it will actually like follow the tip of the glue gun and drag down and form these little strings. And you just add them as much as you want. I would like to get one of the glue guns that they use in the industry for making props and things, where it attaches to like a compressor and it blows the glue and it looks more cobwebby, but it's the same technique that they use in the film industry. It's just obviously their glue gun blows the glue out as opposed to actually just letting it ooze out. I do like this effect though. It's a nice easy effect to add some little cobwebs and little sort of spider trails here and there. And then once it was dry, it looked like this. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.